This is the HEQSF in a flowchart, which engineers are all capable of reading. But if you look at it, it's more confusing than anybody has ever existed. If I presented this to an HR practitioner and I said, these are the qualifications that you can employ people from. And yes, okay, it shows you the level 5 HEQF levels, level 6, level 7, level 8, level 9, and higher, all very nice. And it shows you where you can go to become a technician, a candidate technician, candidate technologist, and candidate engineer. And there are arrows going all over the show showing you that there are various ways to get there. And that was the benefit of the HEQSF. It was designed to create articulation, meaning somebody who perhaps doesn't meet the requirements to study a BEng Tech could then go and start on the right-hand side of the diagram and work their way through one qualification. And then from there, they could go into another one and on and on and on and on and on. And Bladen Zamandi's words were, you could start off as an artisan and one day you could have a PhD. That was the concept of the HEQSF. And I emphasize a concept because when you try and make it work in reality, there is a very, very, very different story. There is still some compartmentalization between the UOTs and the universities of science. This qualification clearly shows you that a 420 credit BET degree should be able to be articulated across, if you see the P1.3 route, into the BEng degree, which is good for industry, because if you've got a talented youngster who maybe based on their poor schooling or secondary education background did not meet the high and mighty entrance requirements for University A, which is A's for maths and science, or B's minimally, but they excelled on the BEng Tech, it's a much cheaper option to take that candidate and go and pour them into the BEng and allow them to progress through and do the remaining credit. But there are rules to the game. There is a national requirement by the Department of Higher Education where you may only transfer 50% of a qualification from one completed qualification across to another. And like I said earlier, I don't know too many employers in the profession, certainly in the profession in which I am in, which is a civil profession, that fully understand the magnitude of this new thing or animal that has been foisted upon them. And lo and behold, look at the hand. It's again showing you nothing has changed in the science universities. The science universities still offer a BSc Eng or a BEng. Yes, they've now got a credit allocation to it, and I'll talk a bit more about those in a moment. And from there, you can progress on to a master's degree. Between the two top professional status blobs is that MEng, the E22P, 180 credit qualification. And if you have a look at this diagram, and if you follow the arrows, if you look at a flow chart, you can get to that MEng via various routes. That is the professional master's. And nowhere on this diagram does it show how somebody with the old NATED 151 qualifications articulates into these programs and what the conditions are. And I will come back to that in a moment. So it's not well defined. Many universities don't advertise how they deal with students that are either at an incomplete stage in the old NATED qualification or got caught up by the phase out. No new registrations post December 2019 on a NATED 151 qualification. And we all know, we've all ourselves been students. We may go there thinking it's going to take us 3 years or 4 years to do our qualification, but life gets exciting when you're a student. There are other things, distractions like the local pub or golf or all the other things, or the ladies or the men, depending on your gender, etc., or both, if that's your preference, and you end up taking a lot longer to complete your qualification than you had envisaged. Universities have phase-out programs, and eventually that tsunami catches up with you, and you sit with a NATED 151 incomplete qualification, and the universities had to come up with strategies as to how to assist those students to still get to an output where they could graduate and where they could meet the minimum requirements to register in a category. Sometimes universities use a system called confirmative status. So if I've got an old national diploma, can I do the advanced diploma in order to become a technologist? The answer is yes, but you can't simply rock up and say, I want to do the advanced diploma, the university either has to have recorded in its rules that that's an alternative entrance requirement as opposed to the 360 diploma, or you have to go through what they call the confirmative status route. The same applies for somebody who perhaps did the old BTech and now is looking at going to a master's degree, professional or otherwise, could be also the normal MEng research qualification. How do they go there? Can they go straight there, or must they go via postgraduate diploma in engineering, or can they go through a BEng Tech? And one of the concerns Bladen Zamandi himself listed is this academic drift. Must everybody become a BEng graduate or BET graduate or even a diploma graduate? What about the people who are more hands-on and should form part of the professional team and perhaps become artisans? It's much easier for somebody to go, and if they're a dropout at a university, a science university, they sometimes make the best students in the BEng Tech and or the old national or similar qualifications. It's not that easy to tell a UOT student, look, you're not cutting the grade in BEng Tech or diploma. Why don't you go and do an N4 or an N6 or an N qualification? It's seen as being a derogatory reference, but there's this concept of academic drift. Every Technikon used to offer a national diploma, and most are BTech, with the exception of one or two. Now, there are very few universities of technology that are offering the diplomas, either the 280 credit one, which has its own challenges, or the diploma in engineering, which is the 360 credit one. There's been a great deal of academic drift towards producing BEng Techs. Is that what the profession wants? You're always going to need the technician. I've heard a dean to say, well, don't worry about it. We're just creating a super technician because we are making them do 3 years, 6 years of study. There is no will component or can have a will component. The only qualification in this entire structure that you see that is will is this engineering practice qualification, which again would appear to be going to be phased out and no longer recognized, and the minimum requirement of 30 credits in the diploma in engineering qualification. That 30 credit is not calculated on the basis of 10 notional hours per credit for will. It's something different, and that causes confusion. But the emphasis on integrating study with work has definitely been overlooked in the way that these new qualifications are being offered.